today's Management OS show. I have my friend here, Adrienne Wilkerson. She is the co-founder and CEO of Beacon Media and Marketing. Um, you come and sit down with us. Adrienne's amazing. We were just having a great conversation about AI and how our head hurts and all this sort of stuff. So we'll get into it. She talked a lot about obviously AI, the ethics and digital marketing and all the changes that are happening there. And it's really where we aligned is like, how do we use technology that's changing so fast, but not losing our sanity and our humanity to who we are and how we serve and all those sorts of things. So she's obviously all about values-driven marketing, a lot of expertise in the health sector, which is so important, across the world, of course. And thank you for coming on to this podcast and sharing your experience with us.
It's a joy to be here. I'm so excited to get to talk with you today.
Yeah, awesome. We were obviously talking a little bit before this, and one of the things I call the shift is, marketing has always been fast. Everyone who's not a marketer thinks it's really easy, and it's it's like going is all of a sudden deciding, hey, I'm going to be a brain surgeon and not have experience. But marketing has always been a mix of art and science, and it is evolving quite literally at light speed. So for those who have paid, we're recording this in November 2025. A lot of noise in the news about AI bubbles and infrastructure and all this. But what is if you step back, what's the biggest shift you think you've seen since AI has entered the mainstream? It's really, we're still about 3 years old when it became available to the average person, for lack of a better word. And how do leaders shape their strategies and how they think about how to deal with this shift?
Yeah, I think, it's been a wild ride, like we talked about, and that wild ride's not ending anytime soon, I don't think. But some of the challenges, there's challenges on the leadership side. How, CEOs, how do we manage this? Business owners, how do we manage this with our teams? How much AI is okay? And one of the lectures that I got to do, I think it was about 2 years ago, actually, and the statistics then were, 80 some percent of your employees are using AI, whether you know it or not. So and that was then. Now it's, even more pervasive, but, we kind of transitioned from that. Okay, business leaders, your team's using this. If you're not ahead of it, if you're not aware of that, if you're not managing that internally, you're already behind the game, kind of a thing. And so the message originally was very much like, don't do the ostrich thing. Don't stick your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, because, it's very similar to the internet in the 90s and websites where businesses were like, the website, do I have to have one? Crap, the internet's not going away. And then it was social media, crap, do I actually have to have a Facebook page? Do I have to have a Google business profile? And it was like, yes, you do. Social's not going away. It could be a powerful tool. And now it's AI, and AI is not going away. And you can't afford to ignore it. And so that was kind of the message 2 years ago. We've moved past that to where everybody knows we can't avoid it anymore. We can't ignore it. But I think the level of, we were talking tech fatigue and implementation fatigue that everybody's struggling with is pervasive and overwhelming. And the second we implement a tech tool, an AI tool, it's evolved, or there's a new one that is claiming to be better. And so there's, challenges there for us as business leaders to try to stay, how much time do we invest in trying to stay ahead and on the cusp of what's going on? And so I kind of jokingly or tongue in cheek say there's kind of 3 levels of implementation that you kind of have to choose what your comfort level is and where you want to be as a company. there's the bleeding edge that's you're jumping on every new bandwagon, you're
Yeah.
testing everything, and that's where the highest level of fatigue is, and your team's going to exist in a constant state of fatigue if you're on that bleeding edge. And then there's the cutting edge where you're not jumping on everything. You might be keeping an eye on, keeping a pulse on the stuff, and you're a little slower to adapt, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. And
Yeah.
then the next stage is early adapters, and that's not either a bad place to be. You're
Yeah.
watching what other people are doing and adapting, and you're asking questions, you're paying attention, but you're not necessarily jumping on everything. And like, you kind of have to pick which one of those you want to be for your company. You can't not implement, you can't not adapt, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to jump on everything. And I think that's the message, because there's this like almost this feeling of loss. Well, what if I
Yeah.
miss out? What if I don't get the new one? Trust me, there will be another one.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, there will be. It's interesting because if we look at history, the patterns honestly repeat themselves. If we think
Absolutely.
about the birth of internet, it was
Hmm.
military driven.
Yes.
If you think about even AI, which I actually didn't know about this, so I was doing this Harvard Agentic AI course, and AI was invented under the Cold War in the 50s. And the whole concept was is that the thinking, and this is interesting to think about this for the future, because you think about bleeding edge and cutting edge and early adopters, that the reason why AI was invented or thought about in the 50s is that the thinking at that time is that humans couldn't be trusted and that they're very
Mm,
emotional. And so, therefore, we have these things that are dangerous and brutal, the nuclear bomb, and we can't apply human judgment on top of that to assess
mm,
if a threat is real, because it could come from an emotional place. And so, the birth of AI was all based around Cold War, not getting emotions and having
mm.
something to be autonomous and think about it. And so that sort of comes just military birth,
Interesting.
and then
Yeah.
all this evolution that has happened.
Hmm.
And I was actually at a Tony Robbins thing yesterday, and they were saying, 125 years, particularly in North America, we doubled our age span from 37 to the mid 70s. Like there's all these
Hmm.
rate of changes. And the rate
Right.
of change right now is so quick. It's
Mm,
difficult. So to your point, you've got to, if you're going to be on that bleeding edge, because you it's got to be comfortable just existing in chaos and not be stressed
right.
about it and saying, look, I'm going to get 1 out of 10 right, but one of, that will be transformative and be
Hmm.
okay with that. Because
Yeah.
what I also didn't know, just a friend of mine, Ryan Dice, he mentioned in a presentation, automobile, and I didn't know this, but automobiles and telephone companies, when that technology started, there were like thousands of car companies, thousands of telecom companies. But today, how many car
Mm,
companies do we have?
right.
Probably not more
True.
than 50 on the entire earth. So
Hmm.
all these new printing presses, all these technologies or
Yes.
advancements start with this chaos,
Right.
hundreds and thousands of companies, and then it all sort of aggregates towards the middle. I think where
Hmm.
we're talking about tech overwhelm is, uh, okay, all this is happening exactly as history sort of shows us it does. It
Right.
took 20 years before, now it's taking 5 years or whatever the
Right.
number is. Like we don't know, we're in the
Yes.
middle of it. So when we get out
Right.
of it, we'll know.
We'll see.
So I
Yeah.
love that. I love your framework. I've never heard that way. So I think that's actually brilliant because I think I've been leading in the bleeding edge and being stressed by it or frazzled by it rather
Hmm.
than because we have agency. At the end of the day, we have a choice to say, I really
Right.
love that framework. I'm really excited about it because here, you're going to pick bleeding edge. It's chaos. Don't be freaked out about the chaos. Just embrace it. Easier said than
Yeah.
done, of course. But I
True.
really love you
True.
for sharing that framework because it helps. At least it just helped me literally on this podcast.
Wonderful.
The importance of okay, where are we, and that sets our mindset by which to embrace it, right? And I
Hmm.
do think mindset is probably more important than the tech itself because it's how we have to approach it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we kind of field tested this methodology, through the years, because when Beacon Media and Marketing was formed, that was the very beginning of the social media inbound digital marketing era. And it was right after kind of the housing boom, that bubble burst, and very
Mhm.
much kind of the tech bubble burst. And like you said, there's a height and then it kind of settles back down. And we had to decide as a company, which one of those we were going to be in. And were we going to be on the bleeding edge or the cutting edge? Or are we going to be okay with maybe being early adapters versus, those? And we were bleeding edge in Alaska when we formed. We were the first digital marketing agency, a comprehensive agency in Alaska. And we were almost too early to market. And it was
Right.
really challenging. And, tech wasn't expanding as fast then as it is now. And even back then, we thought it was crazy. But, we had to, like you said, almost get comfortable in whichever stage we were going to be. And sometimes we moved back and forth between the different kind of modalities, and
Right.
there were times we had to go, like, we got to back up off the bleeding edge a little bit, and so
Mhm.
for us as a company, we choose to kind of live in that cutting edge space. We're not trying to jump on everything on the bleeding edge. We want our clients to be able to be early adapters because we're on the cutting edge, learning and kind of vetting and figuring things out for them so that they can be cutting edge and they don't quite have to go through some of the challenges and the tech fatigue of being on the cutting edge or bleeding edge. And so that's our sweet spot, but it took us a lot of trial and error to get there. And so just
Mhm.
to encourage anybody, like, it's not even something you just pick and stay there. Sometimes you're moving between different ones depending on the stage of your business, the stage of the current technology, and even your own comfort level. Like, I think it's okay to back up and go, like, okay, we're gonna take a 3 month break here. We're still watching it, but we're not, and there'll
Yeah.
be times like, oh man, we got to be, like you're saying, on the bleeding edge, learning everything. And that's just going to be a season, or some companies have to choose to live there. And
Yeah.
everyone comes with their own consequences, good and bad.
Good and bad.